Jack Wilson stood in the bedroom doorway, watching his wife Megan meticulously pack her suitcase. At 35, the high school physics teacher still marveled at Megan's beauty. The morning light danced in her auburn hair, and her green eyes sparkled with excitement. After 10 years of marriage, she could still make his heart race. "Are you sure you have everything you need for the conference?" Jack asked, leaning against the doorframe. Megan glanced up, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I think so. 5 days in Chicago. I want to be prepared for anything." Jack nodded, his eyes drawn to the lingerie Megan carefully folded and tucked into her suitcase. He recognized the delicate lace as part of the anniversary set he'd given her last month. A warmth spread through his chest. She still wanted to wear it, even on a business trip. "Taking the special occasion stuff, I see," he teased with a grin. Megan blushed slightly. "Well, you never know. There might be a fancy dinner or something." Jack couldn't help but notice how much extra effort she had put into her appearance that morning. She spent an extra 20 minutes on her makeup, applying eyeshadow and mascara usually reserved for date nights. Her hair, styled in soft waves, was far from the casual messy bun she typically wore to work. "You're really going all out for this conference," Jack observed. "Must be some important people there." Megan shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "I just want to make a good impression, that's all." The familiar scent of jasmine and vanilla filled the air as Megan spritzed on perfume, the same one he'd given her with the lingerie. It stirred memories of their most intimate moments, but something else tugged at Jack, a feeling he couldn't name. Suspicion? Unease? He pushed it aside. This was Megan, his wife, his best friend, the woman he trusted above all others. "All set?" he asked, forcing a smile. Megan nodded, wheeling her suitcase toward the door. "I think so. I'll call you every night, I promise." She leaned in for a lingering kiss, her fingers tracing his jaw as she pulled away. "I'll miss you," she whispered. "I'll miss you too," Jack replied. "Have a great time. Don't forget to bring me back a souvenir." Megan laughed, the sound light and musical. "Of course. Love you." "Love you too," Jack called as she headed downstairs. He watched from the window as Megan loaded her suitcase into the car and drove away. The house felt strangely empty without her presence. Shaking off the feeling of melancholy, Jack headed to the kitchen for coffee before grading papers. He had just settled in at the dining room table with a stack of exams when his phone buzzed. Expecting it to be Megan, letting him know she'd arrived safely at the airport, Jack was surprised to see an unknown number on the screen. He frowned as he opened the text. "Your wife isn't who you think she is. Check the guest list for the Palmer Hotel." Jack stared at the message, reading it again and again as a chill ran down his spine. Who would send something like this? And why? His first instinct was to delete it, dismissing it as a prank or scam. But a small, insistent voice whispered in the back of his mind, "What if there's something to this?" Setting his phone down, Jack tried to focus on grading, but the words of the text lingered, like an itch he couldn't scratch. He read the same question 3 times without absorbing it. With a frustrated sigh, he pushed the papers aside. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I trust Megan completely." But even as he said the words, Jack found himself reaching for his laptop. It won't hurt to just check, right? Then he could put this to rest and get back to work with a clear conscience. His fingers trembled slightly as he pulled up the Palmer Hotel website, scrolling through the event registration. He filled out the form. Conference name: Chicago Educators Summit. Attendee: Megan Wilson. Jack hit submit and waited, his heart pounding. When the results loaded, his world seemed to tilt on its axis. "No attendees found matching your search." "That can't be right," Jack said aloud. He tried again, carefully checking the spelling, but still nothing. Unease twisted in his stomach as he pulled up their shared digital calendar on his phone. The conference was marked clearly, but beneath it, something else caught his eye. A&M Special Project. Jack's heart sank. The initials tugged at his memory. Then it clicked. Adam Reeves, the new PE teacher Megan had been working with. They had been collaborating on a cross-curricular fitness and art program. Suddenly, the little details Jack had brushed off over the past few months came crashing back into focus. Megan staying late at school, the new form-fitting dresses, the way she'd become more protective of her phone. "No," Jack whispered, shaking his head. "I'm letting my imagination run wild." But doubt had already sunk its claws in. Almost against his will, Jack found himself walking to Megan's home office. He told himself he was just looking for the conference itinerary. Surely she'd left a copy somewhere. He rifled through her desk, finding nothing but student artwork and lesson plans. Jack was about to give up when he noticed a thick art textbook with a scrap of paper sticking out. His heart raced as he pulled the book from the shelf. A folded note fluttered to the floor. Jack unfolded it with trembling hands. Adam's messy handwriting greeted him. "Can't wait for our special getaway. You're my muse, my passion." The words blurred as tears filled Jack's eyes. He sank to the floor, clutching the damning note. How could Megan do this? 10 years of marriage, of building a life together, and she'd thrown it all away for... what? A fling with a handsome new teacher? Jack wasn't sure how long he sat there, overwhelmed by shock and grief. Eventually, the storm of emotions subsided just enough for him to think rationally again. He needed more information before confronting Megan. He needed to be absolutely certain. "I didn't want to cause problems in your marriage over what might have been nothing," Sarah said quietly. Jack nodded slowly, the hurt still simmering, but he understood. Sarah would never have kept something like this from him without a good reason. "So, what do we do now?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Sarah's eyes took on a determined gleam. "Now, we confirm it beyond any doubt. I have some resources at work that can help track Megan's phone. If she's really at the Oceanana resort with Adam, we'll know for sure." Jack hesitated, uncomfortable with the idea of invading Megan's privacy so directly. But the memory of her lies hardened his resolve. He nodded for Sarah to proceed. It took only a few minutes before Sarah pulled up the information on her tablet and turned the screen toward Jack. There, blinking clearly on the map, was Megan's location, at the Oceanana resort. "What now?" Jack asked, his voice hollow. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Now we confront them. But you shouldn't do this alone, Jack. Let me come with you for support and safety." Jack started to protest, but Sarah cut him off. "I'm not taking no for an answer. You're in no state to drive anyway. We'll book a room under my name so they won't see you coming. Then you can decide how to handle the confrontation." As Sarah made the arrangements, Jack felt an eerie calm settle over him. The initial shock and pain were still there, but muted now, buried under a steely determination. Megan and Adam thought they could make a fool of him, but he was going to show them just how wrong they were. "I know how I want to handle this," Jack said as Sarah ended the call with the resort. She raised an eyebrow. "My way," Jack replied, a hint of his old confidence returning. "And I'm going to need your help setting something up before we go." Sarah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Whatever you need, Jack. Let's make them regret ever betraying you." As they gathered their things and headed to Sarah's car, Jack felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, hurt, betrayal. Yet beneath all that, a grim satisfaction began to take shape. By the time this was over, Megan and Adam would wish they'd never thought of their special getaway. Before leaving, Jack quietly set up a live stream link to the school's social media account on his phone. He wasn't sure yet how he would use it, but he wanted to be prepared for anything. As they drove toward the Oceanana resort, Jack's mind raced. How would Megan react when she saw him? What excuses would she try to make? Most importantly, how would he ensure they faced the full consequences of their actions? The answers lay ahead at the luxury beachfront resort, where his wife thought she was safe from discovery. Jack's jaw clenched as the scenery blurred by outside the window. Soon, very soon, he would have his answers, and his revenge. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky as Jack and Sarah pulled into the elegant circular driveway of the Oceanana resort. The sprawling beachfront property exuded luxury, its pristine white facade and manicured gardens beautiful, yet now it only served as a painful reminder of Megan's betrayal. Sarah squeezed Jack's arm reassuringly as they stepped out of the car. "Remember," she whispered, "we're just a normal couple here for a relaxing weekend. No need to draw attention." Jack nodded, forcing a neutral expression onto his face. He'd had plenty of practice hiding his emotions in the past 24 hours. What was one more act in this sea of deception? At the reception desk, Sarah slipped effortlessly into her role, laughing and flirting with the concierge as she spun a story about their romantic getaway. Jack played along, wrapping his arm around her waist, even as his stomach churned with anxiety. "Here are your key cards, Mr. and Mrs. Chin," the concierge said with a polite smile. "You're in room 7112. I hope you enjoy your stay." "Thank you so much," Sarah replied warmly. "I'm sure we will." As they made their way to the elevator, Jack's heart began to race. They were so close now. Just a few more steps, and he would be face to face with Megan and her lover. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "You got this, Jack," Sarah whispered. "I'm right here with you." The elevator dinged, and they stepped out onto the 7th floor. The plush carpet muffled their footsteps as they walked down the hallway, Jack's eyes scanning the numbers on the doors. Room 715, Megan and Adam's room, was just ahead. As they neared, Jack froze. He could hear voices coming from the room, voices he recognized all too well. "Oh, Adam," Megan's breathy laugh cut through the door, each word like a dagger to Jack's heart. "Tonight is going to be our most passionate yet. I can't wait to show you what I brought." "I bet it's that little red number," Adam replied, his voice deep and filled with desire. "The one that drives me wild." "God, Megan, you're insatiable." "Only for you, baby," Megan purred. Poor Jack has no idea what he's missing. Sometimes I can't believe how oblivious he is. White-hot rage flooded Jack's body at those words. His hands clenched into fists, and he fought the urge to storm in right then. How dare they mock him like this? Sarah placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Stick to the plan," she whispered. "We've got them now." Jack nodded jerkily, letting Sarah guide him into their room. He paced back and forth while Sarah quickly set up her recording equipment, positioning a small camera to capture the hallway and the door to Megan and Adam's room. "Okay," Sarah said, double-checking the angle. "We're all set. How do you want to play this?" Jack took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "I want to knock on their door. When Megan answers, I want you to start recording. Use your phone so it's not obvious." Sarah nodded, pulling out her smartphone. "Consider it done. Are you ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Jack replied grimly. They stepped out into the hallway, Sarah positioning herself slightly behind Jack, with her phone held casually at her side. Jack raised his hand and knocked firmly on the door to room 714. There was a moment of muffled confusion inside, then footsteps approached. Jack steeled himself as the door swung open. Megan stood there in a silky robe, her hair tousled, her cheeks flushed. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw Jack standing before her. "Jack," she stammered, "what are you doing here?" "Surprised, darling?" Jack said, his voice unnervingly calm. "I thought I'd join you at this teacher conference." Megan's face paled. Behind her, Adam appeared, equally stunned. "Jack, I can explain," Megan began, but Jack cut her off, raising a hand. "Oh, I'm sure you can. I'm very interested to hear how you explain being here with Adam when you're supposed to be at a conference in Chicago." Adam sputtered, his face a mask of fury and fear. "You promised you wouldn't say anything." Jack remained calm, his voice cold and steady. "And I didn't. You did all the talking yourselves." Megan and Adam scrambled, furiously typing messages and making frantic calls, but the damage was done. Their affair, their lies, their betrayal, it was all out in the open. Jack calmly sipped his water, watching as their world collapsed around them. Sarah placed a hand on his arm, silently showing her support. "I think I've lost my appetite," Jack said, standing up. "Enjoy your meal. Oh, and don't worry about the bill, it's on me. Consider it a parting gift for a decade of marriage." With that, Jack and Sarah left the restaurant, leaving Megan and Adam to face the consequences of their choices. The next morning, the atmosphere in the resort was thick with tension. Word of the scandal had spread, reaching beyond the school and into the local community. Megan and Adam were now pariahs, avoiding eye contact with other guests, flinching at every ping of their phones. Jack, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He had spent the night fielding calls and messages from friends and colleagues, explaining his side of the story with dignity and restraint. As he and Sarah enjoyed breakfast on the balcony, Megan approached, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded, her voice hoarse. "You've ruined everything." Jack set down his coffee cup, meeting her gaze steadily. "I didn't ruin anything, Megan. You did that yourself when you decided to betray our marriage." Megan's face contorted in a mixture of anger and desperation. "You don't understand. I was unhappy. Adam made me feel alive again. You were always so focused on your work, your students. Don't you dare try to blame this on me," Jack interrupted, his calm facade cracking slightly. "If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on our marriage. Instead, you chose to lie, to cheat, and to make a fool out of me. Sarah stood up, placing a supportive hand on Jack's shoulder. "I'll give you two some privacy," she said softly, retreating into the room. Megan's eyes followed Sarah, jealousy flickering. "Is that why you did this?" she spat. "You're sleeping with her, aren't you? This is all just revenge." Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't get it, do you? Sarah is my friend. She's been here for me through this nightmare you created. Unlike you, some people actually understand the concept of loyalty." Megan's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from her. "What happens now, Jack? What are we going to do?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "We?" He shook his head. "There is no we anymore, Megan. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." As if on cue, Adam appeared behind Megan, looking haggard. "We need to talk," he said urgently. "The school board is calling an emergency meeting next week. They want us there to explain what happened." Megan turned to Jack, eyes pleading. "Jack, please, you have to help us. If we lose our jobs—" Jack stood, his expression hardening. "I don't have to do anything. You both made your bed, now you can lie in it. Though considering how often you've done that already, I suppose you're used to it." Adam's face flushed with anger. He took a step toward Jack, fists clenched. "You smug bastard. You think you're so much better than us?" Jack didn't flinch. "I didn't cheat on my spouse. I didn't lie to everyone I know. So yes, Adam, I do think I'm better than you. And if you're smart, you'll back off right now." Something in Jack's tone made Adam hesitate. His usual physical intimidation seemed to bounce off Jack's newfound confidence. "This isn't over," Adam growled as he turned to leave. "Oh, I think it is," Jack called after him. "By the way, I've already spoken to my lawyer. He'll be contacting both of you about the divorce proceedings." Megan gasped. "Divorce?" "Jack, no. We can work this out. Please, just give me another chance." Jack shook his head firmly. "There are no more chances, Megan. You threw away 10 years of marriage for a fling. I deserve better than that. I deserve someone I can trust." Tears streamed down Megan's face as she made one last attempt. "What about our friends? Our colleagues? They'll take sides. It'll be so messy." "I'm not worried," Jack replied calmly. "I've been honest and transparent through this whole ordeal. I think you'll find that honesty goes a long way." As if to prove his point, Jack's phone buzzed with a message. A small smile tugged at his lips. That was Karen from the PTA. "She's organizing a support rally for me. Quite a few parents appreciate how I've handled the situation. They're calling me a role model for integrity." Megan's face crumpled. She had never imagined her affair would blow up like this. In her mind, she had thought she would end things with Adam quietly, and Jack would never know. Now her entire life was falling apart. "I think you should go," Jack said quietly. "Sarah and I have plans for the day, and I'm sure you and Adam have a lot to discuss." Defeated, Megan turned to leave. At the door she paused, looking back at Jack with tear-filled eyes. "I do love you, you know. I never meant to hurt you like this." Jack met her gaze, his expression a mixture of pain and resolve. "If you loved me, Megan, you wouldn't have done this. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. You chose Adam. Now you have to live with that." As Megan left, her shoulders shaking with sobs, Sarah emerged from the room, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Jack took a deep breath, looking out at the ocean view that now felt tainted by the events of the past few days. "No," he admitted. "But I will be." Sarah squeezed his hand. "You handled that incredibly well, Jack. I'm proud of you." Jack managed a small smile. "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done this without you." As they stood together, looking out at the horizon, Jack felt a strange mix of emotions. There was pain, certainly, and anger, but there was also a sense of freedom, of possibility. For the first time since discovering Megan's betrayal, he allowed himself to think about the future. It wouldn't be easy. There were still difficult days ahead. The school board meeting, the divorce proceedings, the inevitable gossip. But Jack knew he would face it all with the same strength and integrity he had shown here. Megan and Adam had made their choices. Now it was time for Jack to make his, and he chose to move forward, to rebuild his life on his own terms. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. This story is more than just a tale of betrayal and revenge. It's a narrative about personal growth and the strength of character. Jack goes through pain, disappointment, and deceit, But instead of being trapped in negative emotions, he chooses a different path, the path of rebuilding himself and his values. His actions teach us that life is not just about reacting to circumstances, but about making deliberate choices. As Viktor Frankl once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." This lesson can be applied to many situations in life. Sometimes circumstances may seem unfair, and the pain caused by loved ones unbearable. But the choice is always ours. Jack could have succumbed to hatred and a thirst for revenge, but he chose a path of dignity and honesty. This is a vital lesson about how a person can rise above adversity by staying true to their principles. As Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Character is the highest virtue, which overcomes all trials." Ultimately, a person's true strength isn't measured by how they handle victories, but by how they overcome their falls. Jack's story reminds us that no matter how deeply we may be hurt by those we love, our inner dignity and the ability to choose remain unwavering. It's essential to remember that each new day is an opportunity for a fresh start, and the choice to remain honest and strong is always in our hands.